Parting is a pedal that I developed in collaboration with Old Blood Noise Endeavors. It's probably the best project I've ever worked on, and it's the culmination of all the knowledge that Russ and I have from trying hundreds, if not thousands, of effect pedals. When we designed Parting, it wasn't like we wanted to make a new version of an already existing pedal. It was a combination of elements that I really love. And once we put all these elements together, it was a lot of effort to make them work really well with one another and have this have its own personality. But I would be lying if I said that I didn't have some direct inspiration from other pedals, such as certain sounds, details, and conceptual ideas, so I wanted to go through some of that and give credit where credit is due. And I also thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about some of my all-time favorite pedals that I still love to use. Parting doesn't make any of them obsolete to me. At most, it applies small ideas from each pedal and modifies them to work within Parting. I think the starting point for all of this was our love for Bitcrushed reverb. And I know technically it's not bit crushing, it's sample rate reduction, but everyone just calls it bit crushing, and I'm guilty of that too. So for this video, we're going to call it bit crushing. And I don't want to see the comments saying, oh, it's sample rate reduction. I know. We're just going to call it, it's just easier to call it bit crushing. Please, don't do that. There are 3 pedals that do Bitcrushed reverb that were the first reference points we talked about when conceptualizing Parting. The first one is the unusual EAS. It's discontinued, and I have 2 of them, so I can run them in stereo and also just have a backup in case one of them stops working, which is like my worst fear. It's got a really distinct, creepy sound, and I love using these in horror soundtracks and in really unsettling pieces. I'm obviously still going to use these a ton, but Parting can get pretty creepy sounding in its own way. The second one is the AC Noises AMA, and this is an incredible ambient reverb and Bitcrusher. It's a little more peaceful and ambient than something like the unusual EAS, but this shows how incredibly versatile this effect combo can be. And the last one is Darkstar, which is also made by Old Blood Noise. Darkstar is a pad reverb with bit crushing, and the bit crushing in this is probably the most similar to the bit crushing in Parting, but it's not the same algorithm. It wasn't purposefully similar, but we tried a lot of different bit crushing sounds when designing Parting, and the one that worked best when combined with all the other sounds in the pedal happened to be somewhat similar to the crushing in Darkstar. The central idea for Parting from the start of development was this dissolve knob. As you can see from the very first concept that Russ and I made, the pedal was always about this duality of destroying your signal in a beautiful way. When the dissolve knob is in the center, your signal is clean. It lowers your sample rate the more you turn it to the left. but we weren't sure what would happen when you turned it to the right. It started out as this lo-fi thing, and at one point it was a tape saturation, but we really love reverse sounds, and so we ended up deciding that that would be the best thing to happen when you turn the knob to the right. Avalanche Run has always been my go-to for reverse delay, and to this day I have not found one that I like better than this. This is usually plugged into my harp when I live stream on Wednesdays, and it's just a really safe choice. Turning the dissolve knob to the right is pretty much the same concept as this pedal, except Parting has a much cleaner sounding version of this. This is the Old Blood Noise BL44, a clock controlled reverse pedal. BL44 can make clean reverse sounds, but it does this weird clock thing with the FV1 chip inside of it where it slows down and degrades your sound and makes it really dirty and noisy. As you turn the dissolve knob to the right on Parting, you start with a clean reverse delay, and it continuously divides the clock to sound more degraded and crushed. We really like the concept of BL44, but we wanted Parting to sound a little less noisy. So same concept, different sound.
There's some weird stuff with the mix that I can't really dial in right now. I'm sure it's like a bug. So I can't really hear. Oh, you know what? Here's the thing. Here's what I don't like about this. This is to the right is reverse, but it's a mix control up until halfway. And then it's a clock thing. I feel like that needs to not be mixed.
Yeah.
Because I want to immediately, I'm like, why is it mix working?
Yeah.
Right? What does it do the first half then? Do we make it so that like when you turn it this way, it's like a clean, clear reverse, and then everything from there is just clock down?
That could be.
You know what I mean? Instead of it being like a weird mix control, because then you have them like canceling each other out. I'm not sure what's happening. It's weird, right?
When we started, we really wanted a glitch element in Parting, but we didn't really know what that meant. We have a lot of cool glitch pedals here in the studio, but we didn't really reference any of them. The only glitch element in Parting that's similar to any of them is the way that the sample rate jumps around a bit in the Chase Bliss Onward, but that was more of a detail rather than a focal point for us. Dan from Old Blood suggested that the glitch could be a chance-based delay buffer, which sounded really cool, but wasn't inherently glitchy enough for us, so we had to add some stuff in order to glitch it out. We tried adding some pitch shifting, but we are not huge fans of those digital pitch shifting sounds, so it wasn't really working for us.
This would be so cool if there's no like cheesy, cheap octave. I wouldn't use this.
But we eventually decided to use our favorite pitch shifting method, which is something that's pretty uncommon. This happens in 3 analog Bucket Brigade pedals that we love. The delay in Parting is digital and isn't modeled after Bucket Brigade delays, but it borrows one of our favorite elements from these 3 or 4 pedals. My favorite example of this is in the Flancher 5 pedals. When you turn the time knob on any delay pedal, you usually get this crazy modulation as a byproduct. Flancher has a double button, and when you press this, it instantly doubles or halves the delay time. that modulation that you usually get is still happening, but since it's doubling or halving instantly, you hear it shift up or down an octave, and it's momentary. Flancher has a CV input that actually allows you to automatically double or half the delay time using an external modular synth LFO. And I would say that this is the main element that inspired the glitch sound on Parting. Before Parting was made, we could not use pedals to make this sound without spending at least $500. The Chase Plus Thermae uses this mechanic to do all different intervals of pitch shifting, and we were only interested in octave up and down for Parting, but this was a good reference point to test and see if we should explore other intervals, but it just didn't really feel right for our pedal. The Beatronics BBD came out when Parting was pretty late in development. It wasn't a big inspiration or anything like that, but this is another Bucket Brigade pedal that does this that we think is really cool. The glitch knob on Parting controls the chance of the doubling or the halving happening, and it was originally called doubles, and it was actually in this spot over here for most of the pedal's development. But we also wanted to give you the option to control when it happens, so you can use the aux foot switch to double or halve it too. Parting takes this idea a step further. Since this is digital, we were able to make it so that you can smear the glitch delay into a reverb, so these delay time pitch shifts become part of the reverb, which is something that I don't think any other pedal does. It also doubles and halves the modulation speed at the same time, which makes everything feel a lot more in sync while still being pretty glitchy. wanted wanted it to have an envelope mode so that people could have more control over the glitch if they wanted to and make it less chance-based. And there's not really much more to it than that. It was one of the last things that was coded into parting, and we didn't spend too much time on it because we didn't really feel like we needed to. The delay in parting has a time knob, but Russ and I didn't think that the modulation from turning the time knob was appropriate for parting. And since it was digital, we figured that it might be possible to remove it. We didn't really want parting to feel like a traditional delay, and every time we turned the time knob, we felt like we were just waiting for the modulation to stop before we kept playing.
So the biggest thing is going to be removing that modulation when we turn it.
The only reason that we thought it was even possible to remove this is because the delay time knob on the Mood Mark II doesn't do this when you turn it. So we asked Dan if he could try to make it not modulate when you turn that knob on parting. When Dan first tried this, a really cool glitchy sound was happening when you turn the time knob, and we loved it. Unfortunately, this was causing some MIDI issues, so we had to abandon it. But the best thing we could do with the time that we had was make it silent when you turn it. And I personally love this because it's a way to quickly reset the delay buffer when things get out of hand.
You know what the best thing is?
What?
When you turn the delay time knob, it doesn't modulate anymore.
Wait, listen to this. Oh, shit. Parting originally had a lot of modulation elements, but the one that we cared about the most was tremolo. So we referenced our favorite tremolo pedals, but there really wasn't much to it. We knew that there was a selection of waveforms that we really wanted, like reverse sawtooth and random sine and square, and we also wanted parting to be able to do ping pong tremolo. But there was a problem with ping pong tremolo that we wanted to avoid. When you use the choppy waveforms that we really love and turn the depth up, it can be really disorienting to the listener. And we experienced this when we were using the Arboretum, because when we made a video using this, a lot of viewers said they couldn't listen with headphones. We had a hand in testing and developing this pedal, the Intrepid Audio Crossflow, and some of our feedback included controlling the stereo width in order to avoid this. Crossflow actually ended up doing this successfully, but the range of the knob that controlled the stereo width wasn't how we wanted to do it in parting. We implemented a similar concept in parting. One of the secondary controls allows you to adjust the stereo width of the tremolo in a way that really made sense to us. And we decided to make it a secondary control because I feel like it's something that most people probably won't use, and if they do, it probably won't be very often. The mod button lets you change from tremolo to vibrato, and it was really straightforward, and we didn't put too much time into the vibrato. It behaves most like the Earthquaker Aqueduct and the Leclerc Nostalgia pedal in that it does a bunch of chorus and vibrato things with a bunch of waveforms that you don't usually see. These were not pedals that we really looked at or thought of until Parting was pretty much done. The filter on Parting was a later addition, and it was similar to vibrato in that we didn't spend a whole lot of time working on it. We knew we didn't want it to be super resonant. It was just there to remove certain frequencies, and that's about it. We love the low pass filter from Von Gone, and I feel like this was somewhere in the back of our minds when we were looking at it with Dan in the studio and designing Parting. One element in Parting that I have never found in another effect pedal is the fact that it has two mix modes. Once we discovered Parting's sound and really took another look at everything, we discovered that the mix control had become really complicated. It had bit crushing in it, but there was no way to make it just a bit crusher. And the same thing was true for the tremolo and the reverse sounds, so adding an alternate mix mode opened up those possibilities and really made the pedal a lot more flexible and versatile. These different mix modes are really what lets Parting have a strong personality, but also be extremely versatile at the same time. A lot of thought and intention went into Parting and all of its little quirks and details. Having knowledge of all these pedals and knowing what we like really helped shape Parting, and it's part of the reason why this really feels like a collection of all the things that we love. We referenced concepts from all these pedals that you saw in this video to communicate to Old Blood Noise how we thought Parting should work. They were coding it based on our feedback and our suggestions, so it was really important to use these examples when communicating. I mean, listen, if a pedal company can drop a pedal that's another Tube Screamer clone with a slight variation, I feel like this whole process is even more ethical than that. So anyway, thank you so much for listening, and if you want to hear more from Parting, you can check out the videos linked in the description below.